What does your body feel like in zero gravity?
What inspires you to become an astronaut?
What exercise do you do? And do you sweat in space?
Would a yo-yo work in microgravity?
So it works.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
We are ready.
South River and Goddard, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is South River High School in Goddard. How do you hear me?
Have you loud and clear. Welcome aboard. It's great to be with you today.
Ricky, if you had to describe your experience at NASA so far in 3 words, what would they be and why?
I think challenging, exciting, and fulfilling. It's a challenging job. There's a lot expected of us. There's a lot to learn. Requires a lot of hard work. But because of that, it is a very fulfilling experience being here, part of NASA.
Microgravity for extended amounts of time, and does it affect your sleep?
It does take us some time to get used to microgravity, and in fact, the whole time we're up here for the whole 6 months, we'll be getting used to microgravity, but the initial period takes about 1 to 3 days, and it does affect our sleep. We have a hard time sleeping because essentially we're floating all the time, not only while we're working, but when we're sleeping, so it's hard to transition from work to sleep. But eventually we get the hang of it and are able to get good night's sleep, sometimes better than what we get on Earth.
Ricky, what happens if an astronaut gets sick during a mission?
We all get a lot of medical training, but we're really fortunate that we happen by coincidence to have a Japanese doctor astronaut with us for the first half of our mission. On the second half, we have a NASA astronaut doctor who's going to be with us. Drew's trained, I'm trained, but neither of us want the other guy to perform any kind of emergency medical procedures on each other.
Drew, have you seen any space trash floating by or heard it hit the space station? If so, how often does this occur?
Unfortunately, we do not see or have not seen any space trash floating by. That's actually very dangerous for us. I have on occasion thought that I may have heard something bouncing off the space station, which sort of sounds like a BB hitting a tin can. But luckily we have not had any encounters with space debris, and that's especially important when we're out in spacewalks. We do not want to encounter anything like that while we're here in space.
Ricky, how did you prepare for your mission, and was the training difficult?
I trained for about a year, which is a pretty short training flow. We learned how to operate the American components, the International Space Station. We learned how to use some of the Russian components, the International Space Station, Japanese and European as well. And then we spent a fair amount of time in Russia learning how to fly the Soyuz spacecraft that took us to orbit and will later in the fall bring us back home. It's challenging. There was a fair bit of travel involved, a lot of different languages, but it was also very, very rewarding because of when you meet the challenge, work hard, and it pays off. It's a very rewarding experience, and it was a lot of fun. I got to work with a lot of great people.
Drew, what happens to the electrical and communication systems on board the ISS during a solar storm?
Well, the real issue isn't what happens to the systems on ISS. It's more related to what happens to the communication satellites that we use, the TDRS or TDRS satellites that are out in orbit. I think they're at geosynchronous about 25,000 miles away. And so when those satellites are impacted by solar storms, we also can see impacts to our communications back with Earth. And the same things happen on Earth typically with cell phones.
Ricky, when you call your parents and friends, are you using your cell phone? And can you call them out of what part of the world you're over?
Hey, Dad, how you doing? No, my government phone, they did not want to pay those bills using a cell phone up here, and it wouldn't work. We use a voice over internet phone, so we actually use the internet, send a signal down to the ground through the satellites Drew was talking about, and then that's turned into a phone call to whoever I happen to call.
Drew, what food do you grow on the International Space Station, and which food tastes the best?
Well, when Ricky and I just arrived a few weeks back on the ISS, we were growing lettuce, about 12 variants of lettuce, and we were able to sample some of that early on in the mission. It was all delicious. I really enjoyed it. Right now we're growing a form of grass. I don't think we'll be eating the grass, but it's neat to watch it grow, and one of our crewmates down on the Russian segment decided to continue to grow an onion that he had freshly delivered on a cargo supply ship. So you can see in the video here that we've got an onion growing on space station, and at some point we're going to get to sample this. I think Ricky's already had some down on the Russian segment.
Ricky, is it more difficult to swallow and digest food since gravity is not working to pull things through your digestive system? And if so, how has this changed how you eat?
The digestive system, eating, swallowing is all the same. It's all the muscle contractions are the same here as they are on Earth, so that part's fairly easy. But the rest of the digestive process relies a lot on gravity, as we both learned during our space flight. So things you don't seem to feel as hungry all the time because your stomach feels full, and the rest of the process moves a little bit more slowly here than it does on Earth as well.
Drew, what are the requirements for being an astronaut?
The basic requirements are a four-year degree from an accredited university in science, technology, or engineering. We also have medical doctors, but basically the standard requirements are a four-year degree. What we typically find is that astronaut applicants have advanced degrees. I have a PhD and a master's degree. Ricky has a master's degree and a teaching degree as well, teaching credentials. So, but the basic requirement is a four-year degree in science or mathematics, technology, and engineering.
Ricky, what views of the Earth are most spectacular from space?
Well, Maryland for one, because of the Chesapeake Bay and just the features you can see, the folding of the mountains that run through western Maryland is also pretty spectacular and really clearly visible from space. Also, the southern portion of South America, Patagonia, Chile, and Argentina are spectacular for the lakes and the mountains and the glaciers. Really enjoy looking at those, and also the world's islands, all these exotic places out in the middle of the ocean that you've read about, but the only time you probably get to see them is if you fly over them.
Drew, how often do you have to make repairs to the ISS?
Well, repairs come in all sizes, from the smallest little things of rerouting cables or replacing connectors to replacing large components. So you could say that we make repairs every day to the ISS, and occasionally we go outside the space station for a spacewalk like Ricky and I did a week and a half ago and make repairs on the outside. So it's a constant battle. It's sort of like owning a home, only in a very harsh environment, and we are almost every day making repairs or exchanges of equipment that wears out in the harsh environment of space.
Ricky, how are you protected from the sun's radiation?
Well, we're still within the Earth's magnetic field, so we get protection from the magnetic field, not as much as you do on Earth, but we still benefit from that. We also have a lot of shielding around us. So one of the things that happens when you sleep on in space is you notice subatomic particles from the sun hit the back of your retina, and you get these flashes in the back of your eyes with your eyes closed. And Drew and I were talking the other day on the space shuttle. We used to see a lot more of those than we do here on the space station. The space station, it's only very rarely that we see those flashes at night when we try to sleep, and we think it's because of the amount of protection they have around us for solar radiation.
Drew, have you considered going to Mars, and if so, why?
Absolutely. I would love to take a trip to Mars, assuming it's a two-way journey. I think Mars would be an amazing place for humans to explore, and I believe Mars was once a lot like Earth, and so we could learn a lot by being there. And eventually, as we send more and more rovers there, at some point we're going to send humans and have a great opportunity to learn so much more about the planet and maybe about the beginnings of or future of our own planet.
Ricky, have you done a spacewalk, and if so, what was it like?
I've been very fortunate. I've done a few spacewalks. Most recently, Drew and I did one in the end of March. We're going to do another one in the middle of May. It's a really long day. It's a really busy day, but it's unbelievable. I'll never forget on this past spacewalk, I was talking about one of my favorite places to look at was Argentina and Chile and Patagonia. And we flew right over it during our spacewalk at a time when I happened to be looking at the ground. And to see that part of the Earth with only through your visor was an image that I will not soon forget.
Drew, how do you manage your sweat during a spacewalk?
We try not to build up any sweat. That's how we manage it. We have a liquid cooling garment that we wear directly against our skin, which has water flowing through it, and then we have a controller on the front of our spacesuit, which allows us to pass that water over a heat exchanger or a cold radiator that can cool it off. So the trick for us is to stay ahead of the heat and the heating and the cooling, and make sure that we always maintain a moderate temperature in the spacesuit so we don't build up too much sweat or get too cold.
Ricky, when NASA returns to the moon, what type of research will be done and how would we benefit from that research?
Drew's a geologist. My background's in earth science as well. And so I think for the two of us, the research that was most interesting is the structure of the moon. It's been a long time since humans have been there, and the technology we've developed to better understand the processes that form the moon and thereby form the Earth and the rest of the solar system. That's a question that is very, very interesting to me. I think one of the other things we're going to figure out on the moon is the technologies we need. We're going to have to develop the technologies that will one day get us to the other planets in the solar system like Mars. So the moon's only about four days away. Mars can be a 4 to 6 to 9 month journey depending on where it is. So we need to go to a closer location with an environment similar to Mars to develop the technologies that one day will get humans out into further into the solar system.
Drew, as we work towards getting to Mars, how is NASA's role different from commercial partners like SpaceX?
Well, right now, we believe that NASA is the customer to a commercial company like SpaceX. So SpaceX and the other private industry corporations that are building spacecraft are really building them right now for NASA as a customer. So we believe that NASA will use those vehicles and that those industries, those private companies have some advantages, some competitive advantages that NASA really doesn't have as a government agency to be able to build those spacecraft at maybe a quicker pace than what NASA can do, although there are some challenges related to that as well. But the key point here is that we expect that NASA is the customer to those, NASA is a customer to those companies.
Ricky, gotta say, love the shirt. Do you believe that the incorporation of artificial intelligence will help you in daily operations and help alleviate stress, both as a systems monitor and a potential companion?
It's an interesting question. Artificial intelligence on the space station, we rely a lot on the ground, specialists on the ground to help us do things here. But as we move further out into the solar system, communication gaps start to grow from seconds to minutes to even going on parts of an hour. So we are going to need to have onboard capability to help specialists to help us solve the problems that our technology is going to face, that we're going to face. We get sick, we get have something break. And I think that is a role where development of artificial intelligence technologies will really, really help us a lot as we move further out in the solar system as a more independent type crew.
Drew, what is the most interesting thing you personally have learned in space?
I've learned that living with Ricky can be challenging. I didn't expect that before we launched. Oh, I'm just kidding. We're having a great time up here. What I've learned is that I don't really like sleeping in space. I would really prefer to be laying down in a bed. It helps with the transition from being awake during the day and knowing when it's time to sleep and your body to take a rest. So I've realized that I really do miss having that pressure of that sensory input of a bed and a pillow.
Ricky, do you think asteroid mining and going back to the moon is important to future space exploration? And if so, why?
The question about SpaceX is an interesting one, and commercial for commercial entities to go out and explore space, there has to be an incentive for them. And as I was saying earlier, when we go and send geologists off into the solar system and learn about the resources that are there to harvest and their availability, and we start to develop the technologies to make that possible, I think private enterprises for commercial mining will be not far behind us to take advantage of the resources that are becoming scarce on Earth.
Drew, what is your top concern or priority on the International Space Station?
Right now, my top priority is to be a good follower to the crew and the commander that's on board and learn how to live and work in space efficiently and effectively. And when this crew departs and the next one leaves or the next one arrives, I'll take over as commander. And my role at that point, my main concern becomes safety of the crew and safety of the spacecraft, and then success of the mission. So those are my priorities now, and I'll transition to some slightly different priorities once the mission continues on.
Ricky, what are the biggest differences between living on Earth and living in space?
Besides the views out the window, I think you're looking at it. Keeping track of stuff that doesn't sit down. You know, you sit your keys somewhere, you sit a pen somewhere on Earth. You might forget where you set it, and someone might move it for you. But by and large, it's going to be wherever you left it. Here, I set this microphone down and go to walk away, and 3 hours later, the circulation might have taken it all the way to the Russian segment or behind one of our racks and make it impossible to find. So just keeping track of your belongings and when they all float is probably the biggest difference between living on the space station and living on Earth.
Drew, besides your family, what do you miss the most about life on Earth?
I would say the day-to-day changes in the weather. One thing about being on the space station is the weather's always the same inside, but we can see clearly down on Earth how the weather is different. And Ricky and I both talked about missing the smells of Earth, missing the feel of rain. I remember within the last week of leaving for Russia before we launched into space, I took a walk with my wife, and it was sunny and clear when we left for the walk, and about 30 minutes later it was a complete downpour, and we didn't have an umbrella, and I just really enjoyed that walk because I was soaking wet by the time I got home. But I thought to myself, this is probably the last time I'm going to feel rain for another 8 months, and it was, and it will be. So we miss Earth. We miss that living planet that we have down beneath us.
How does zero gravity affect taste and perception of food?
Yeah, we get asked that question a lot, and I'm not sure. When your food comes in packages like this right here, this is a chicken fiesta chicken. I'm not sure how much of a fiesta it is. And this right here is a hamburger that we need to add water to, a beef patty. So I'm not sure it's the microgravity environment or if it's just the menu items that we get. We have a food crew that does a really good job of getting us what we need to eat to keep us healthy and try to keep us happy. When SpaceX arrived, we had some fresh fruit and vegetables, and I remember how good that tasted because it had only been a few weeks, but I'd forgotten how tasty that stuff is. So I'm not sure if it's the microgravity environment, but I think it's the environment we are in terms of what we can ship to the International Space Station and keep fresh and edible and safe for us to eat.
Hey Rick, I have some bad news for you. We have some extra time so we can spend some quality time together. How are things going up there? You guys having a good time?
Hopefully, it looks like we're having a good time. I'm here with Elvis, and we're we're having a good time. We're getting a lot of good work done. Drew and I have been doing a lot of photography, which we've been enjoying, and the guys, Nemo Maker and Anton and Oleg, have done a real good job of getting us oriented and get off on a good foot for the rest of our increment.
Ricky and Drew, those are all of our questions for today. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us today. You certainly have inspired all of us to dream of being an astronaut, a true sailor of the stars. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate you inviting us to visit you today, and Goddard for help making this happen. I hope you could see the South River t-shirt I had sent up on the space station waiting for me. I've been wearing that with pride. Keep up the good work, study hard, and follow your dreams.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all the participants from South River High School and Goddard. We are now resuming operational audio communications.